So I wanted to make a quick video about pulling the timing belt off and the lower intake manifold off the VG30DE. Been kind of making some overview documentation on my experiences pulling this motor platform out of the 300ZX and the Infiniti J30. I'll probably do some J30 videos later on. They actually are interesting component. But I'm going to talk about, best I can, reference what I did while I took my lower intake manifold off. Reason I need the lower intake manifold was because I am swapping over the injectors and all the fuel rails from a newer style motor to an older DETT. And so I needed it. This is my donor motor. So I massaged, I didn't actually do anything. I just gently bent after I took all the intake manifold bolts out, lower intake manifold bolts. There's two studs in the rear section of the motor, last two ports, and two nuts secure it. And then up front, the same, two studs with a nut secures it. And then you have your hex head, I guess they'd be Allen key head bolts that hold the lower intake manifold down into the cylinder heads. And this uses metal gaskets. I noticed when I pulled it apart, I thought that was good. Oh, knocking stuff over. So, I want to rob some other components off, and so I started taking the timing belt off. I want some of the hardware from underneath the lower portion of the timing belt cover. So that's where I'm at now. This part here, taking the top plastic covers off, I needed a PTU, new style PTU off of it. So I took the cover off and had fun with the OEM timing belt cover bolts. Most of them were okay, but I had a few that are like this, odd Phillips shape, Phillips head looking bolt. And it is actually, I thought I had some loose ones. It's actually about an 8mm, but the problem is they get so corroded and rusted because they're down here with the coolant that they go kind of to like a 7.5. So some of them I had to hit it with the old hammer, light hammer socket, a 7.5 on an 8, kind of make it fit and work it. But once you break them loose, they're not bad because it's not actually a heavy gauge metal that they're threaded into. Next thing I had to do was the crank pulley. Crank pulley on this one's kind of rough, as you can see, but no matter. So the first thing I used was a 27mm, 27mm socket, big wrench, ratchet rather, giant ratchet, that's what I call them. They're actually the, for breaking axles, it's actually an axle kit, old Harbor Freight set that I've been sitting on, but I used to do a lot of CV axles in the GM 3800 front wheel drive cars. They blow through axles, so I ended up buying a set. And whenever I'd work on one, fix it, sell it, or whatever I did with it, I'd have my set axles. I knew I'd have to do them. So, but anyway, back to more important, which is Nissan. Nissan over everything all the time. Nissan Infiniti Datsun. I went and got this cheapo Harbor Freight 46-piece puller set. For the most part, I only use the 10mm head, but I believe these are 5mm. I'll have to check the dimensions of the thread. Specifically, I'll either add it in the description or I will put it in the next video I do. I'll reference it. Let me see. Yeah, I had it written down, but I forgot. But basically, the set that Harbor Freight sells you actually isn't right for Nissan. I had to go and get my own. I believe, like I said, they were they're 10 millimeter head. And I will check. That's gonna bother me that I can't remember it. But I had to go and get my own. I went to Ace Hardware, something like that. They gently thread into the crank pulley. See, I already started taking it apart because my pulley's hanging off. But they thread in right there, and that one threads in right there. And then you use a 14 millimeter, which I like because everything else on Nissan's 10 and 12. So I can strip the entire motor and pretty much 10, 12, and 14, get the whole job done in one sitting. But you throw that in the bolt puller, you crank it in, and it puts pressure against the bolt. You want to leave the crank bolt in it. And actually, after I break it loose and take it off, I take the crank bolt, put it back in, thread it in lightly, and then I set it up, and then I let the crank bolt take all the pressure or the direct contact from the pulley puller, so I don't damage any of the sensitive, softer internals. And yeah, that's basically as far as I've gotten. So I will make another video as I proceed and progress, and let you know when I'm done.